Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien. On Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Well, this month marks 100 years of the famous The Gloves Came Off. So, this is my comment today's story. Oh, I should say, sitting in for Paul Harvey today. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, today's story, Americans, is on the day the gloves came off. Oh, April 18th, 1923. And it was two titans of the times. And they both were vicious fighters. And they knew how to use the media of the time. Had the bully pulpit just like 100 years later. Some guy named Donald J. Trump has it here. And it all started back in 1920. Okay? And you must understand that both of these guys had their ups and downs. They were both around the same time. They both lived to be around the same time. One died a few years later than the other one, but they were both close. One was from England, one was from Budapest. Yeah. One was a lonely guy who became very much influential, and the other guy, well, he invented himself to be an American. The one guy you know, Arthur Conan Doyle, or as later would be Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and Sherlock Holmes in the 1880s and 90s. And like I told before, and there's a story about Arthur with his first wife, Lucy, who, she was suffering from tuberculosis. And he ended up going to Switzerland, and that saved her for a few years. Gave her a lot more time than they thought she would, 13 years. But in the 1890s, he was in this little town near Davos, Switzerland, and he helped the Swiss invent skiing for themselves. Okay? And that was part of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The other guy in question, he came from Budapest. Nobody knew him. His father was a rabbi who got fired eventually, so he moved from Appleton to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His name was Eric Weiss. And Eric, when he was a young guy, about 13, 14, he figured he had to leave school and work and help his family earn money because it was tough in Milwaukee at the time. He was born in 1874, so you're looking about 1889, 1990, about this time. Anyway, he eventually found himself. He read this book by a certain Robert Houdin. And about a decade later, Eric Weiss was gone. And lo and behold, enters Harry Houdini. And you guys know about Harry Houdini and the late 1890s, 1900s, 1910s. And by 1920, he was the big guy. But remember, fame is fleeting, just as Mr. Conan Doyle found out with Sherlock Holmes. Fame is fleeting. So In 1920, Mr. Conan Doyle had married again, and his wife was a very devout uh, spiritualist, as she called herself. Uh, I call this the American Mafia. And it wasn't the Italian Mafia like Al Capone and people like that. This was the American Mafia. Because the people that did seances and mediums and everything else that you know today, for every penny or every $10 that guys like Al Capone was getting, and you know that Al Capone ended up with $16 million, in the mafia. He was one of the big guys. For every $10 that he earned, these guys like Lady Doyle would have earned 1,000. It was big business, bigger than the Italian mafia. I mean, this mafia controlled everything. Judges, you name it. By 1921, 22, they controlled it. And the people involved in this were not only the medium people that did the futures, the mediums, the ones that talked to the people from the other side. You want to talk to your mother or brother or husband? Come and see me and we'll tell you. And they had other things. Some had crystal balls like the guys that saw the future. Some, like Miss Doyle, Lady Doyle, would use pencil and pen. To say, oh, your husband's here and he's writing this down. Others would have little projections that they used and all kinds of stuff. And this is the 1920s, okay? Well, Houdini, since he had written a book that got him in big trouble, opening up what Robert Houdin did, oh boy, and that really messed him up with the magicians because he threw everything out there. I mean, Houdini was, every trick in the book that Houdin used, he put it out there in that book, and oh man, did he get nasty. So by 1920, he had to find some other way of doing things. Magic just wouldn't do it for him because he had gotten hot water with the high guys there. And also you had other things, the guys who were coming up. Remember, it was barnstorming days with the airplane. So he bought an airplane, went over there and did it. All kinds of stuff. Anyway, but this seance thing, he wanted to do the same thing that he did to Robert Houdin. And he got in touch with Arthur Conan Doyle. And at first he thought that this was going to be, that he would have been wrong, that there's something good about this. And they got to be good friends. So in 1922, the Doyles invited him and his wife, Esther, to a seance to check his mom who had died in 1920. And that was the rock place for Houdini. So Houdini went over there. And when he went to that seance, when he came out of that in November 22, oh boy, he he knew it was a scam in big time. He knew how they did it. But he had reservations. Do I really want to blow this up? Because if I put this out there, Doyle's going to come at me with both, and not only him, but remember, Doyle and his wife were part of a super mafia, and boy, did they come out of him. When he came with his gloves open, Doyle, he put his gloves on, and he was coming with left hook, right cross, and everything to Henry Houdini. Even death threats. You think that today's death threats are anything to be worried about with these crazy Republicans and Democrats? You should have seen the death threats that Houdini was getting from these spiritualist guys over there, and sayers and soothsayers and everybody else. Boy, he wasn't only getting death threats; he got shot at a few times. Yeah. And some say that when he died in 1926, they had something to do with it. which, the way he died, it wasn't anything he did. He had 3 days later and he passed out. So they figured that there was hanky panky done to his equipment there. And that's even today. You look it up, and today you'll see Henry Houdini is still one of the history's mysteries out there. Uh, but Doyle, he was making a lot of money. I mean, he was wealthy in his own right, but his wife was making tons of money with this thing. And Houdini came out, no uncertain terms, double barrel shooting, and he really messed up the mafia, because after him and the successors, when he died in 1926, that mafia came down because they looked at him and they said, "Oh, it's a sham," and millions of dollars in shams here. They did to that mafia what the United States government couldn't do to the Italian mafia until the late 70s, and they're still around. Not as good as they used to be, but they're still there. But this mafia went underground, and today they're still kind of underground because the people don't go into the, "Oh, can I get a seance to get my brother, my husband, and my wife back so I can talk to them and say, do they have McDonald's over there?" Yeah, you see what I mean, Americans? But, Houdini died in 1926. Arthur Conan Doyle would die in 1930, and there went the stuff. But boy, it was vicious. Oh, and by the way, Houdini's wife, Esther, till the time she died, she was still trying to get somebody legitimate, because Houdini told her that he would talk to her sometime if she could find a legitimate person. So she still had seances to try to find old Henry Houdini. And now, you know the rest of the story. How vicious this mafia was, and they had judges and everybody under the sun, and they killed a lot of people who were anti them. You thought that the Italian mafia is bad? Oh, you should have seen this mafia here with the soothsayers and mediums and everything else. They were vicious in the 1920s. Sitting in for Paul Harvey, this is your favorite alien. Now, you know the rest of the story. Good day.